Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Comblusier, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar features Kuya Silver, which is a Canadian-based mineral exploration and development company with a focus on acquiring, exploring, and advancing precious metals assets in Peru and Canada. It's developing its Bethania silver-lead-zinc project in Peru, where it just signed a toll milling agreement, and is continuing exploration at its Silver Kings silver-cobalt project in the Cobalt Camp in Ontario, where drilling is underway. Today I have with me on the webinar David Stein, who's the President and Chief Executive Officer at Kuya. Great to have you here, David.
Thank you very much, Taylor. Nice to be here.
So the format of today's webinar will be comprised of two parts. In the first part, David will provide an introduction and update on Kuya, and then in the second part, we'll take your questions live. So please send us your questions via the chat, and we'll get to as many as we can. You can type in your questions at any point throughout today's webinar. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then get into the presentation. So for Kuya Silver, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Kuya corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Kuya Silver specific disclosures. So with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to David to update you on Kuya and what you have to look forward to with this company.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. We do have our disclosures. Our Kuya disclosures are on our presentation that you can get from our website, www.kuya.com. And I'd encourage everyone on the call to go and check out that on your own. But with that, very happy to be here. I've got most of our team, I think, is on the call, but I'm going to do the presentation and the Q&A today. And we've got a lot going on with Kuya, so let's just get to it. So there's lots of time for questions as well at the end. Kuya is I think a unique opportunity in the silver space because we've got really multiple ways for our investors to win. Our original dual track strategy was developing the Bethania mine in Peru and exploring it at the same time, which we've been able to progress on both of those tracks over the past few years. And then we added the Silver Kings project on top of that. So we also have an exploration track on Silver Kings. It's a little earlier stage project, but something that we do see the potential to put into production, over the next few years after we, have some additional exploration success there. So in terms of where we are today, we're on Bethania, on the mine itself. We've got permits. We did a resource estimate PEA, and we just announced the toll milling agreement today. Actually, a new one, a much better one, and I'll talk more about that later. We've got a slide in the presentation on that. On the exploration side, we've got lots going on. I mean, in particular with Bethania, we've been able to greatly increase our land package and discover more silver veins. So we've got a lot of exploration to grow into over the next few years. And then at Silver Kings, of course, we've been busy prioritizing targets, and then lo and behold, we made a major new discovery about 6 months ago now in March, April of this year, and we'll talk about that shortly. We're drilling right now. I think the very challenging precious metals market aside, I think right now is a really great time to be looking at Kuya as an investment, because we've got not one but two projects that are right at the sweet spot where the most value can be created the most quickly, which are basically at the discovery phase, which we have at Silver Kings, and then when you take a project into production like we have at Bethania. So, I'm borrowing the Lassonde curve here from, mining billionaire Pierre Lassonde. This was, I think first published 20 plus years ago. But it's a very good guide, broadly speaking, of how a project increases value over its life as you learn more information about it and de-risk it and eventually get into a cash flow situation when it's in production. So I think we're very close with Bethania on that. We're at a very great spot with Silver Kings, about to sort of put some more meat on the bone there and really demonstrate to the market that we have a real project with a future there. So again, opportune time with both the projects to create value very quickly. All right, well, let's start with Silver Kings because we are drilling there right now, and we'll finish with Bethania. Silver Kings is a project that we have put together over the past few years. We own 100% of all the land you see on this map, and actually we have some other property outside this map as well. About 18,000 hectares, all in northeastern Ontario, sort of in and around the historic mining town of Cobalt and to the south. On our property specifically, we can attribute about 1/6 of the total production of the camp, which is over 500 million ounces. And at times during the 20th century, this would have been one of, if not the biggest silver producer in the world. So it's a very, very, important area for silver production, but it's really been forgotten about for the last 30, 40 years. So we believe in this. We believe that these high grade veins that they have here will be economic to mine. But it's a matter of going in and doing, some updated and exploration with a refreshed exploration model. And of course, you have to realize that all the easy stuff has been found here, but we have been putting together sort of an exploration model based on what we've learned about the mining mining and exploration over the last 120 years, plus some of the work we've done ourselves over the past couple of years since Kuya's been involved. And I think we're starting to narrow down on a model that is generating some success with the drill bit. So in this map here, this is the northern area, which we call the Kerr project, or the Kerr area. It's around the Kerr Lake there. It's sort of in the center of this diagram. And on our properties, we can attribute about 60 million ounces of production. So after the town of Cobalt itself, this would have been the next biggest producer of cobalt and silver in the whole camp. And just to the north of the lake, that's where we made our Campbell Crawford discovery recently. Although we've been looking at other targets, and we have some other targets in the area. But the story of Campbell Crawford is pretty interesting and really is telling of how we're going to be successful in the future here. So if you look at the geology of the whole camp, what you'll find is throughout most of the area, over many tens of kilometers, you can find this Nipissing diabase, which is this orange unit here, or this orangey brown on the plan map on the right here. And this is it's a slightly younger rock than some of the Proterozoic rocks, and it's definitely younger than the Archean rocks in the area in the green. But it would have been in place, we believe, as a flat-lying unit originally, and then over the last 2 billion years, it's been gently folded and faulted in some places as well. And these folds and faults seem to be important places to localize the mineralization. Now, if you look at this cartoon of the stratigraphy here, or the rock strata that we have here, you'll see that, for example, at the town of Cobalt, the diabase has actually been eroded away. It's gone. And of course, leaving underneath it, you can see the cobalt silver veins which came right to surface. And of course, those were the first, that was the original discovery. And those have been largely mined out. And in fact, if you look at all 4 of these areas that we've identified on this map, the silver veins outcropped at surface. Now, of course, then they might have followed them, the miners might have followed them down deeper, but they were always discovered at surface first. And what's really unique about Campbell Crawford is that we've made a discovery and there's no silver at surface. So this is pretty unique in terms of the history of the mining camp. Now, if we zoom in on the Campbell Crawford area here, there are some barren veins that are at surface, and they were found 120 years ago. And there's a little bit of cobalt mineralization that would have been a clue that there could be something deeper here. Now, they did do a tunnel about 100 feet down, and they found the veins. Unfortunately, there was still no silver there. They were way too high in the diabase, as you can see, again, in this orangey brown unit here. They were way too high in the diabase to find the mineralization, which is either right below or right above the diabase. When we went in and drilled this earlier this year, on our second hole, we sort of hit a nice spot right below the diabase where it's intersecting this vein that comes right to surface. And that's what we call the Angus vein. And that's where we hit the 15,000 grams per ton over 3.3 meters in one hole. And then a hole going the other direction, we hit 2,400 grams per ton over 2.5 meters. So a nice, pretty wide looking zone here of mineralization, vein, breccia. There's stringers in there that host silver as well. So it's multiple styles. It's a little bit complex, but it's very, very exciting and juicy. And we're very excited to be drilling that area again now. Now, besides the Angus vein, which you can see right here on surface, which does come to surface, we found that there's some other veins that outcrop on surface as well. I mean, again, these were known in the past, but we went back and stripped them this summer just to get a better idea of exactly where they were. So because, when we drill, we want to drill, in exactly the right spot or as close to it as possible. So we found this second vein, which is parallel to Angus, called McNamara. So that's another target for us to hit that below the diabase and see if we can find more silver mineralization there. And then we found another one on the other side of this lake, which we call the Clark vein. Again, very similar. It's sort of a barren or weakly mineralized vein at surface that has the potential for mineralization at depth. So now that we have our eyes out for these kinds of targets, we can find them all over our property. Now, and of course, here is a focus for us because we had the discovery there a few months ago, but we do see many other places on our 18,000 hectares where we can find similar targets at depth to drill as well. So we're gonna have a lot of not just these targets around Campbell Crawford in the immediate term, but over the long term, I expect that we'll have other deposits as well on our property, feeding potentially one centralized mill would be the idea. So that's Silver Kings. Okay, now Bethania. Bethania, our original project and still our most advanced. It's a past producing mine that we are looking at putting back into production, and now we're closer than ever now with the announcement today. So very exciting. Great location. It's in central Peru. It's in the silver lead zinc belt that's just east of Lima. Our mine itself is about 170 kilometers southeast of Lima, and it's on roads going right to site. There's the city of Huancayo that's about 500,000 people that's close by as well. So very good area with good infrastructure. Now, when we started, we were really uniquely focused on this mine property here. This is the original permitted mining concession for the mine. And of course, all the mining took place really on the western edge of it. However, in addition to some exploration success we've had on the mine property itself, which I'll talk about, we have significantly increased our land package around the mine. So we've acquired all this land around to the north, south and east. And then also further to the west, we've got these two yellow stars, which is Carmelitas and Carmelitas Norte as well. So we've acquired and staked our own grounds and acquired land as well from other local owners to increase this land package to over 4,500 hectares now around the mine. So we've really transformed this from a mine scale project to a district scale project in the last 3 years. And that's really exciting for the future growth potential of this area. In terms of our current resource, we've got the resource that we put out in early 2022. We really focused our drilling around the mine workings so that we could make a mine plan and 3D mine plan and really fast track this into production. So our focus was more on the production side than it was the exploration side. Although we've got a really nice resource to start, and of course something which we think is going to be a lot bigger in the future. Our resource is really kind of subdivided into 3 parallel systems, vein systems that kind of branch out and spread out into more veins as you go closer to surface. So we actually have 18 different vein domains in our model, but we simplify them into 3 zones, which we call Española, Doce de Mayo, and Victoria. They're all sub-parallel to one another. They all sort of run east-west, and they're all equally important when it comes to the production and exploration potential, all open at depth, all open along strike. So that's our current resource. And I'll show you how it's going to get a lot bigger in a second, but we also did a PEA. I won't go through these numbers right now. At the time we did this, we were really focused on building our own mill, which we still plan to do eventually. It's just that we have this option now that we can toll mill at the beginning, which essentially defers a lot of capex into the future. So I do believe we will be building our own mill at some point, and even this mill that we designed in the PEA is really just a phase 1, something that we can expand onto as we have more exploration success. But nevertheless, I think the PEA does demonstrate that having production here at Bethania, whether it's our own mill or whether it's toll milling, is very, very economically very economically exciting. Now, the toll milling agreement itself, which we announced today, it's with a mill that's only about 20 kilometers away by road. So that compares to other mills that we've looked at in the past, including one we announced earlier this year that was more closer to 200 kilometers away. So significantly shorter. Which obviously saves a lot in terms of the trucking cost. This mill as well was used by the previous owners of the mine, so we have some familiarity with it in terms of processing there, logistics, etc. And really, this is a fantastic opportunity for us to be able to go back there and start our mine up milling at the San Valentin plant. So very, very exciting news for us today. It's going to save us a lot of cost on the operating cost. Although I believe we have an economic project that we could easily truck it 200 kilometers if we had to, but it's much better to truck it only 20 kilometers. So that's really, really exciting. Okay, now on the exploration, this really speaks to the huge growth potential of Bethania. Currently, our resource is only in this red triangle here, and again, it was drilled with limited drilling, about 5,000 meters that we did, all from surface. But it's open at depth, and we believe we're at the top of the vein system here. We've got good reason to believe that, and so we expect that this will go quite a bit deeper, potentially hundreds of meters deeper, and all of our deepest drill holes have intersected very nice high grade mineralization. Now moving to the east here, we've got this hilltop zone, which we believe is all part of the same vein system, but we've only really explored this at surface. We've got some of the best, in fact, the best surface sample we've ever had is the Santa Lane vein sample, 90 ounces per ton silver and 5 grams gold. And we've had many other really good samples here. So we've got a cluster of veins on the other side of this hill that we believe will all connect up underground and lead to a significant expansion of the resource potential ultimately. And remember, these are also open at depth as well. And then further away from the mine, we've got the two Carmelitas zones. So Carmelitas Main and Carmelitas Norte. Carmelitas Main was actually a artisanal mine. So, it was sort of easy to find the veins there in a sense. But when we did go there and start mapping, we found more veins than were previously known. And we've sampled a lot of those. And then Carmelitas Norte was a grassroots discovery that our team made last year that again expands the sort of the footprint of veins that we have at surface. So whether it's the Bethania Main zone, Hilltop zone, Carmelitas Main, Carmelitas Norte, we've got almost 2.5 kilometers of strike length of vein material at surface, most of which is undrilled. We've only drilled about 500 meters of that, and in that 500 meters, we've only drilled it to about an average of 200 meters depth. So there's still a lot of room deeper, and there's a lot of room, to drill along strike in all these areas. And so, if you start arm waving, you can get to really, really big silver numbers pretty quickly here, which is really exciting. So in terms of, our Kuya advantage here, we've really got, there's many, but divided into 3. So we've got our corporate advantage that we are a near-term silver producer, trading with a valuation of almost nothing. We've got, attractive metal values, and it is mostly silver that we have at Bethania. So we will be a true silver producer when we get into production, which is different than, a lot of other guys who have silver in the name. We have high management ownership, which is good alignment with shareholders, and really simple structure. We 100% own all of our projects. Our exploration advantage is that we, at Bethania, really easy to drill. The veins come right to surface, and they can be sort of identified first by really cheap mapping and sampling. And then obviously we've got lots of drilling to happen over the next few years. At Silver Kings, our veins don't come to surface, but we do have the benefit of flow through, which is a huge advantage to explore in Canada. And now that we've made our first discovery there, I think we've developed a model that is repeatable for the camp. And then finally, the production advantage, because Bethania is a recent past producer, it is something where the infrastructure is there to go back into production very quickly. And, that's something that really gives us, again, a leg up over other mining projects that are out there, either green fields or, we're in production 30, 40 years ago. It's a big difference to have a mine that was in production, in this case, only 7 years ago. So we've got a great advantage there to put that back into production and, really change the scope of the company quite significantly for the positive. Our capital structure here, we've got, again, we talked about the management ownership, very high. We've got some great institutional shareholders as well. Given our asset base, with 2 really exciting silver projects. A market cap under 20 million Canadian is really nothing. It's something that could, increase dramatically over the coming years, especially if we get into a silver bull market, which, I think we will. And then I won't go through the team here in too much detail. We've got a great team. We've got great advisors as well that are all also shareholders of the company. And maybe I'll leave it there. So we've got lots of time for questions.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, David. Great presentation. So now we'll turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar. Just a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type your questions in to the chat at any point. With that said, we have had quite a few come in. So we'll just start here. A couple of questions, just wondering about at Bethania, when would the first ore be sent to the mill and kind of the timing to get that toll milling going?
So I'd say we still want to sign an offtake agreement, and that would be something that we're working on. We're very close on now. So the toll milling agreement with San Valentin was sort of the first step, and then stay tuned for the offtake part of it. But I would say once we have all of the various pieces signed up and closed, we could start trucking ore to the mill within 4 months or so. So the first few months we've reserved in our kind of our internal model for underground development, including sort of cleaning up some of the old mining areas and stuff like that. And then within months, again, we can start production. There will be, it'll be small at first. It'll ramp up very quickly. And then, the production can become quite meaningful, within a few quarters.
Great. And just on that agreement, was it a long process to get it negotiated, or was it relatively smooth?
It ended up being very smooth, but it was something that we'd been back and forth on for quite a while. It's a group that was known to us, obviously because of the history of the mine, and so something that we've been working on and off for quite a while. But it did come together pretty quickly over the last few weeks, which is great.
Great. And then just a question here in terms of some of the metrics on Bethania. What is the all-in sustaining cost that you expect?
So all we have public-wise is what's in our PEA. So of course with toll milling it will be a little different than that, but I would refer people to the PEA and the all-in sustaining costs. It's in our presentation, but sort of range between $10 and $12, 10 in the earlier years, and then it sort of goes up. And that has a lot to do with the grade. In a high grade mine, there will be years or there will be periods of time where we can mine, above average grade and the cost will be a little lower. But this is going to be a low cost mine regardless. Now, I would say that with the toll milling that we have with this new agreement and especially with the cost we'll save on the trucking, that's going to knock a few dollars off of our all-in sustaining costs. But again, we don't have any sort of 43-101 numbers out on that other than what's in the PEA.
Great. Okay. So we have a question here, just wondering if at this point, what point will revenue from the mill cover costs of exploration, and do you already have sufficient cash to last that long, or will you need to undertake a fundraising?
Yeah, so we had not raised enough in the past to get into production with this plan, even though it's not. It doesn't require a lot of capital. It's still above the scope of what we have right now. So, we'll have to address that. However, I would say the offtake agreement will be part of that. So stay tuned on that. That's part of the puzzle piece there. Now, in terms of what was the first part of that question?
Just wondering at what point the revenue will cover exploration costs.
So the revenue should ramp up, again, over the first few months and quarters. All we have in the public domain is what's in the PEA. But so I guess let's put it this way. I mean, in the PEA, which was a little different, but it did start with toll milling as well for the first 6 months. I believe, made $9 million of free cash flow in the first 6 months at $25 silver. So this is something that can make a lot of money very quickly, month over month, once it's in production. And obviously those numbers will change. The silver price is a little lower today, but this is something that still could make over $1 million a month when things get going, which could easily pay for our exploration, to answer your question.
Great. Okay. And then I guess just with the toll milling agreement, I know that within the press release, it said the term could be extended if it's kind of mutually agreed to by both parties. Down the road, once you get your own mill built, could there be a situation where you have enough kind of mine production to feed both your own facility and then kind of mill that toll milling agreement as well? Is that kind of growth potential there?
Absolutely. I mean, I've talked to in the past, just again, arm waving over the exploration potential that we see from all the silver veins that we've discovered on surface. That Bethania itself could double or triple production from the rate that our kind of our starter plant that we designed that's in the PEA. So that's at 350 tons per day. I could easily see this over several years, obviously, but going to somewhere between double and triple that, maybe as much as 1,000 tons per day. Obviously, we need to explore and have more resources for that, but I mean that's just a matter of time and money. Like drilling, like the veins are there. So, in my mind, it's just a matter of when, not if. And then obviously, in that case, we may have material over and above, at least for a period of time. We may have material over and above what we would want to process in our own plant. And having the ability to continue to work with San Valentin, beyond the 2 years would be obviously a great option for us.
Great. Okay. So questions are coming in fast and furious here. Just let me try to find the one I was trying to get to next here. With the so at Bethania, are you planning to do a PFS down the road, or would you go to that level?
It's not a critical path item for us in our view. We've done enough work that we're prepared to move forward. I suppose we'll see how the next year goes, because if we start toll milling and we have some time between now and building our own plant, we may want to make it's possible we may want to make some changes to it. In which case, I mean, we'd probably go from a PEA to a PFS at that point, since we have so much data already. So it's possible, but it's not. Again, I just want to emphasize, it's not something that is a bottleneck for us. We don't need to do one, but we may do one if we think it will add value and will provide better information for the investors down the road.
Okay. And then just kind of with the offtake agreement, I guess, do you have an aim with the pricing structure for that agreement in mind?
It's going to be market. I mean, really, what the metals traders in Peru, there's a lot of them. It's a very competitive business. We have a known product from the recent history of the mine, and it's a very valuable silver-rich concentrate that we can produce. That's very sought after by really all the metals traders. So I think what you'll see is really just a market pricing structure on that. And it won't be anything sort of fancy.
And we have a question here, just wondering if you know on the top of your head, what is the projected cost of mine cleanup and refurbishing?
I do know that. I mean, we're budgeting, I think somewhere in the 500,000 or something like that. Maybe a bit more or less, depending on how things go once we get back inside the mine. But it'd sort of be on that order of magnitude. It's not millions. It's in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. So I guess there's some questions that come in on Silver Kings as well. So maybe we'll turn over to that. Let's see here. Well, I guess on that one, we do have a question just wondering when kind of your projected timeline is to get to a PEA for that asset.
On Silver Kings?
Yeah.
Well, I think we need a resource first. So we just made a discovery with the last drill program. I think this one right now, we want to sort of take it a bit further and start putting some more meat on the bone in terms of our discovery area. So I think we're probably still, a year plus away from a PEA. But look, we do explore with production in mind. Like we do believe that there could be a mine there one day, and that's why we're doing it. We're not doing it just for, just to generate drill results. So there's tremendous potential there. The fact that you've got this, really, what I call ultra high grade, so sort of an order of magnitude more than, your traditional Mexico or Peru high grade silver vein mine. The Silver Kings is, it's even greater than that, significantly greater grade than that. So with a relatively small tonnage on the order of a few hundred tons per day, you could be a material silver producer. And, that does not take a lot of money. It's a very small footprint in terms of environmental impact. And so that's something I think is very doable in Northern Ontario. And that's really what we're looking at doing there.
Perfect. Okay. And then just Silver Kings as well, in terms of, just wondering how extensive infrastructure is there, given the history of the camp, and kind of, is there any underground developments at the projects and how extensive, if there are some?
Okay, well, I mean, at our Campbell Crawford discovery, there's just that exploration at it, but it's way higher than where we hit the mineralization. So I'm not sure if it's going to be useful or not for us, or it's just more of a an academic, an interesting thing. I mean, there's roads that go pretty close to anywhere in the area. So nothing is too far off the beaten path. What's really, you have power nearby. And, there's a town of about 12,000 people, just a few kilometers to the north, which is, Haileybury and New Liskeard. And so, as far as exploration or mining projects go, it's actually a great site because people can basically live, in a house or apartment and go to work, drive to work every day. You're not flying people into a camp or anything like that. So it's a really great project from that infrastructure point of view. Interestingly, we actually, when we acquired our original group of properties, One of them was a mill site, and there is a mill building on there with actually some old equipment in it still, and that's something that would potentially make a lot of sense for us to use in the future. Seeing as it's already laid out, and there's already some buildings there and some infrastructure there. So that's another advantage that I would say we have over perhaps some other similar projects.
Great. Okay. So just turning to the corporate side a bit here. One follow-up, I guess, to the Silver Kings before we move on. We have a question from a viewer here, just wondering about the history of the project. How did you acquire it?
Yeah, so it's the first group of properties we acquired from First Cobalt, which is now called Electra. They went through a process, starting in 2020 to essentially sell it, dispose it, because it was a non-core for them. We were interested because, frankly, the high-grade nature of the silver, and cobalt veins there, which, by the way, they occur together. So when I say silver cobalt, I'm really talking about the same veins. They're not two separate veins. It's one, and you get both metals together, much like we get lead and zinc and copper and gold with our silver veins in Peru. So the silver cobalt veins, we like the fact that they're super high grade. It really kind of reminded me, not geologically, but from a mining point of view, of what we're doing in Peru. And we know, how positive and how economic those, high grade vein mines can be in Peru. And we thought this is, we've got a shot to do something similar in Canada. So we were very interested. We originally, back in 2021, signed a deal to acquire the most advanced group of properties, which was the Kerr area that I showed you earlier. That's a little less than 1,000 hectares. And then we did a joint venture on the rest of the properties, which are more grassrootsy, earlier stage kind of stuff with not as much data on them. We later ended up just buying those out from and consolidating the whole thing from Electra. And as well, we consolidated an additional portion of the properties from another company called Canadian Silver Hunters. So between 3 different transactions, plus doing some of our own staking along the way, that's how we accumulated the whole land package over the course of about 2 years.
Perfect. Okay. So now on the corporate side, we have a question here, just wondering about how much interaction you have with Crescat, and are they mainly a passive investor, if they are?
I have quite a bit of interaction, give them regular updates, and talk to Quentin Hennig pretty frequently. I would say they're more active than most of our investors, and we like it that way because Quentin has a lot of great wisdom, and the other Crescat guys have a great market insight as well to share with us, and so we definitely benefit from that relationship.
Perfect. Okay. And then just turning to the M&A side a bit, and what your kind of corporate plans are on that front. Is that something you're looking at in terms of getting more land, building up your current positions, or adding a different project? Like, is that, or are you mainly focused on these two projects and you're good with that?
Well, look, it's no secret that I like the sort of the model of the early days of companies like First Majestic and Endeavor, that were able to, consolidate different silver mines and put together a nice production profile through 3 or 4 distinct mines, all feeding, the corporate structure. I think in silver, that's really the way that you need to go. So, however, with that being said, we've been in a shockingly terrible market for the past 2 years. Shocking even to me as a 20-year veteran in capital markets. So I don't think we're looking at anything imminently right now. We've got 2 great projects, and it's hard to see anything accretive right now, given how much upside we have at Bethania and Silver Kings. But look, longer term, I'm totally open to it, and I would see. I think we have the expertise to actually put mines into production in Kuya. See our COO Christian Arameo. He's got tons of real mining experience and project development experience. So I think we have the team to do it, and it's just a matter of getting a bit more critical mass on Kuya, and then we can start looking at doing more deals.
Perfect. Yeah, I appreciate the insight on the strategy there. It's very helpful. So I think we're through pretty well all the questions that have come in. So maybe I'll just turn it over to you for any final comments or thoughts or a final pitch to investors that you've got on the line before we wrap up.
Yeah, look, I'm very pleased that we had a lot of questions on Bethania today. It was, it's something where, when you're doing this sort of corporate development work behind the scenes, there isn't a lot that you can announce until something is closed. And so, in some cases, months go by without any news, and it doesn't mean that we're not active. It just means that we didn't have stuff that was publicly available to announce. But I think going forward, it's going to get a lot more active, and that's very exciting because it's still a tremendous project with great potential as a producer and as an exploration project. And then we're very excited. We're very happy that we have, we're drilling at Silver Kings, and I think we'll have some good results this fall, and then we'll keep going there into 2024. It's going to be a big project. If you look at some of our previous corporate presentations there, we have a pyramid of, I think, 40 some targets there that we're working our way through. So although we spend 90+% of the time talking about Campbell Crawford, we have many other targets, some of which have some really good historical results as well, and some of which have the same signs like a Campbell Crawford, but we haven't drilled them yet. So I really see potential for multiple discoveries there on the Silver Kings properties, and having a project in Canada is a nice little bonus as well.
Perfect. All right, so it's probably a great place to wrap up there. I didn't see any other questions come in. So with that, I would like to thank David from Kuya Silver for taking the time today to host the webinar with Red Cloud Securities, and thank you to everybody for tuning in with us.
Thanks everyone.